Hey, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erica. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. I would love to have you subscribe, like, comment, and if you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. So today's video is going to be a get ready with me and a story time. And this story time is going to be very different than anything I've done on my channel so far, but it's something that I've really wanted to do since I got started. And I know I've mentioned in a couple other videos that my mom passed away 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. And about a year ago, when I was really seriously considering starting my channel, my husband and I happened to watch a documentary on Amazon called Death Makes Life Possible. And it was this really well done documentary about death and loss and grieving and healing. And there's several different psychologists in the documentary. Deepak Chopra is in it. And then there's also a married couple. The husband has been recently diagnosed with a terminal illness. And he and his wife just kind of talk about how they're dealing with it and what they're going through and what their future holds for them. And one of the psychologists made a point or a statement that really resonated with me and really planted the seed in my head to want to create this video. And what she said is that in the majority, not all, but a lot of American cultural or societal groups, that we just don't deal with death very well. We don't talk about it. It makes us very uncomfortable and scared and uneasy. And it has become this like taboo subject that nobody really wants to go near. And because of that, most people, when they're grieving and going through that process, do it alone and do it very isolated and just kind of away from everybody else. And that there's a lot of other countries and cultures throughout the world that handle this very differently. They're a lot more open and upfront and deal with it in a much healthier way than we do. And I absolutely agreed with her. And so I just really wanted to create a video talking to you guys about my mom's passing and the grief that I experienced, the feelings that I went through, the experiences that I had, and then things that I did for myself to help me get through this, things I took advantage of within my community, just to kind of heal and move on with my life as best I could. And recently, one of my very dear friends on this platform, her name is Audrey Michelle. I'm going to link her video in my description box. She made a video where she discussed her brother passing away. And it was such a moving, powerful video. And I was so proud of her for doing it. It just kind of gave me the push that I needed to finally create my own. I just didn't really know how to do this or if it was the right thing to do, but I really believe that it is. I want to say that my goal here is not to cause any undue stress or anxiety or sadness. And if this is something that you don't feel like you can watch, I completely understand. I just ask that maybe you hang with me for just a few minutes, just to see if maybe this is something that you can watch. My goal here ultimately is to be some sort of help or maybe guidance or impart some of my wisdom that I learned through this whole process onto somebody that is either going through this or has gone through this. Because the bottom line is, we are all going to go through this at some point in our lives. And I just feel like if maybe we could talk about it more openly, we would feel less alone and less alien and more accepted and just have it be less awkward and uncomfortable, you know? I hope that makes sense. So I am gonna be putting my makeup on in this video. I'm not gonna be talking about the makeup at all. I'm just gonna be creating my look. And I really wanted to create a look that I think my mom would love, kind of like a tribute to her. My mom graduated from the University of Oregon with a master's degree in education many moons ago. And she was absolutely obsessed with the Oregon Ducks. That's their mascot. And that's the university of my hometown. And she was just such a huge fan of their football team, basketball, both men and women, track, baseball, softball, volleyball. I mean, any sport that the Ducks played, my mom was so into it and just loved it to pieces. And so I just thought it would be really fun to create a green and yellow look, which are the colors of the Ducks. I even have my duck hoodie on today. Recently, I picked up a couple quads from Juvia's place that I thought would be perfect for this look. I picked up the Rebel Army. This is an all green quad. I just think it's gorgeous. And I want to be honest, I had tried to film this video one other time and I got about halfway through my look and just decided it was not the right time for me to be filming. So this is actually my second attempt. And I just think this is a gorgeous quad and I love it to pieces. And then the other quad that I'm going to be pulling in is the Rebel Honey. And this is the yellow aspect of the look. It's not necessarily yellow, but it's kind of mustardy and I think it fits the bill just fine. And it's just gorgeous. It's got 3 mats and the shimmer hair. And I'm just really excited to put these two together and create a look for you guys. So without any further ado, I'm going to get started with my look and also with my story. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, my mom passed away on July 20th of 2016. And 12 years before that, in 2004, my mom had a very mild stroke. And just to kind of put things in context here, my daughter Sydney was 5 at the time, and my son Braden was 2. And we were living with my parents when this happened. And my mom had had very high blood pressure when I was growing up. And at the time of her stroke, she had not been to the doctor and had not taken her blood pressure medication in over 10 years. So not good. They did a bunch of tests and scans to kind of figure out why she'd had her stroke. And of course, the high blood pressure didn't help, but her heart was also throwing off blood clots. So they put my mom back on her blood pressure medication, and they also put her on a blood thinner, which is not the most fun medication to take. It's got a lot of side effects that aren't very nice, but kind of a necessary evil when your body is making blood clots that are causing strokes. And my mom made some very big changes in her life to make herself healthier. And one of the things she did was she started walking like 5 to 10 miles a day. Got really into it. She had like the full rain gear because it rains a lot here in Oregon. And she had like the little Walkman that wraps around your arm. I mean, she was so into it, and it was great. She lost a lot of weight. She got very fit, and she looked good. She felt good. And I was just so proud of my mom for taking the strides that she needed to take in order to make herself healthier and, try to prevent having another stroke. And my mom and I and my kids and my mom had a very unique relationship in that when Sydney was 2 years old and I was 3 months pregnant with Braden, I left their father. He was abusive. And I just couldn't live like that anymore. And I did not want to bring another child into that situation. And I had been talking to my mom about it for a while, and she just said, you guys can come and live here. Please just come here. You can bring Sydney, you can have the baby, you can live here for as long as you need. And I would just, love to help you and, take care of you guys and support you. And I was just so blessed and so grateful that my mom was willing to do that for me. Because, there's a lot of women all over the world that are, kind of stuck in these situations because they don't have anywhere to go. So I just felt so lucky that I had her to help me. And so my mom was not just a grandma to my kids, she was like another mother to them. She really helped me raise them. And, I was the mom, and, the buck stopped with me, and my mom was very respectful of that. But, she just did a lot to help me, raise them and take care of them. And my mom was my absolute best friend. I mean, she was my best friend. She was there for me through everything. I mean, I could go to my mom for anything, and she was always there, to support me and listen to me and give me advice. And she was just a really cool person. She was awesome. She was really funny. She had a great sense of humor, just kind of wacky, goofy. I mean, she had all these funny sayings that my kids and I still say to this day. And she was also very intelligent. She had her bachelor's and master's degree in education, and she was a school teacher, and she loved her job, loved teaching. She was a huge champion of women's rights. I mean, she just like lived for women's rights and, taught that a lot in her classes, and she just loved that. And just very loving and warm and affectionate and accepting and just a really neat person. And I always felt so blessed and just, very lucky that I had a mom like that. I was raised in an environment of love and acceptance, and so were my kids. I mean, she helped me raise the kids the same way. And she just did a lot of things to help me. I went back to work shortly after we moved in there, and we lived there for a few years. And so she would take the kids to school for me, bring them home, take them to practices, and, just take them and do fun stuff like get ice cream and go to Starbucks and to movies. And it was wonderful. And a few years later, we moved out into the house that I'm in right now. And even after I moved into this house, my mom was still a very active daily part of our lives. She continued to help me to take the kids to school and pick them up, and just, practices and theater and just, any activity that they had, my mom would help me, transport and whatnot. And she was just very supportive of my kids, very, very supportive. And they were very, very close, had a really great bond with one another. So on July 19th of 2016, I was heading home from work, and I called my mom. I always call my mom on my way home from work just to kind of check in with her and just kind of see, how she was doing and where she was. Sometimes she'd be like at my house, or she'd have my kids with her, whatever, just check in with her. And she told me that she had a very mild headache and was going to just kind of flop on the couch for the night. And she'd been dealing with headaches off and on for a couple of weeks before she passed away. I mean, nothing major, but just, headaches. And, we weren't really worried about it, but it was just kind of different than normal. She didn't usually have headaches. So I just, talked to her for a few minutes, told her I'd hoped she felt better and that I would get a hold of her at some point in the evening. So I got home and my kids were both home, just kind of checked in with them, changed into my sweatpants, and started thinking about what I was going to be making for dinner. And my mom called me, and maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes had passed from my initial conversation with her on my way home from work. And she told me that she was having the worst headache that she'd ever had in her life, that on a scale of like 1 to 10, it was like a 50. And I asked her, I said, do you think you're having another stroke? And she said, yeah, I do. And I said, okay, I'm coming. So I told the kids what was going on, that, we were concerned that my mom could be having another stroke. And of course they were very concerned and worried, and that, I was going over there and that I would let them know what was going on as soon as I knew anything. So I raced over there, and they literally live like 2 minutes away. And my dad still lives in that same house from where I live. So I got over there very quickly. And when I got in the house, my dad was on the phone with 911, and my mom was very clearly in the middle of a severe crisis. I mean, it was obvious that there was something extremely wrong with her. And the paramedics arrived shortly after that, and they took her blood pressure, and it was like, I don't know, 290 over like 180. I mean, just ridiculously high. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what? So of course, they raced her to the hospital. My dad and I follow closely behind. And by the time they'd gotten her to the hospital, she had stopped breathing, and they basically had to put her on life support. The emergency room physician was amazing. Like, probably the best doctor I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I'm not kidding. She was wonderful. She basically just shared with us that there was no neurosurgeon in the town where I live in, and that she would need to take some images of my mom's brain, that she was, pretty confident that my mom had some kind of stroke or, some kind of disruption in her brain that had caused this to happen. And that she would send the scans or images up to Portland, which is a town about 2 hours north of us, where there was a neurosurgeon there. And that most likely they would need to life flight my mom to Portland to have surgery done. So she did the images and sent those up to the surgeon up in Portland. And he took a look at those, and he told us that there was really nothing that he could do for her. His exact words were that it would be a supremely heroic effort to try to intervene surgically, that the damage that had been done to my mom's brain was so severe that there was just really nothing that he could do to help her. And what she had was called a subarachnoid hemorrhage. And it's basically like an aneurysm that had ruptured in her brain. And what an aneurysm is, it's like a weakness in the blood vessel, in a blood vessel in your brain, that kind of forms like a bulge or like a balloon that just kind of accumulates blood over time. And hers had these like little tendrils that came off of it, like a spider, hence the arachnoid, and that entire thing had ruptured in my mom's brain, and that it had done some extensive damage to the point where there was just nothing left to really do anything with. And he explained that, my mom would never regain consciousness, that the chances of her surviving a surgery were very minimal, number one, and that even if she did, that she would never regain consciousness. She was never going to open her eyes, talk, breathe, walk. I mean, nothing, that this was it, then we really needed to face the fact that this was the end of her life. And I just could not believe that this was happening. I just talked to her like, I don't know, maybe an hour before that. I mean, yeah, she said she had a headache, but I mean, I don't know. It was just so surreal. So my dad and I sat down with the emergency room physician and had a really good talk with her. And, we just were like, what should we do? And the doctor basically said, like, what would your mom want? And to my dad, what would your wife want? And my mom was always very open with us and very upfront about the fact that if she was ever in a situation like this, that she did not want to be kept on life support. She would just say, if this ever happens to me, you let me go. Do not keep me on life support. I don't want to be like that. I don't want you guys to see me like that. Just please, just let me go. I want to be set free. And so after agonizing about it for quite a while, we finally made the decision that that's what we were going to do, was to let her go. So the doctor basically said that they would put her in a private room in the ICU, and that I could go home and get my kids and bring them back down to the hospital with me, because I really wanted them to be able to say goodbye to their grandmother. I mean, that was very important to me. And that, we could be with her as long as we needed to until we were ready to, turn off the life support. So I went home and sat my kids down and explained to them what was going on, which was the hardest, absolute hardest conversation that I've ever had in my entire life. I mean, hands down, absolutely the hardest conversation I've ever had. And, we all just absolutely fell apart. I mean, we did. We lost it. It was awful. And, we got ourselves back together as best we could, and we went back down to the hospital, and my dad and I and the kids went and sat in with my mom for several hours, and we all, hugged her and held her hand and said all the things that we needed to say to her, said our goodbyes and how much we loved her, and, just had a very precious few hours with her. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, we went ahead and shut off her life support, and at 11:05 a.m. she passed away. And I will never forget walking out of the hospital to go home. And I walked outside, and it was, July 20th. And the sun was out. It was a beautiful sunny day. There were birds chirping. I could hear kids laughing, and I just could not believe that was what was going on. I don't know. I think I thought I was going to walk outside and it would just be like ash and rubble everywhere, and it wasn't like that. And I was like, what? I just couldn't believe that that's how it was. It was just so strange to, have it be this bright sunny day and my mom's gone. I don't know. And that's really when my grief started. I just went through this wide range of emotion, immediately. I can't even really put it into words. I'll try my best, but I just, I was sad. I was angry. I was confused. I was lost. I was in denial, absolute disbelief. It was almost like I kept thinking that she was on vacation somewhere or something, I would go to text her, I would go to call her, and then have to remind myself, you can't do that anymore, I would think that I would see her, hear her, smell her. There were times that I can remember being at home and hearing the front door open and thinking she was going to walk through the door. I don't know. It was just so crazy. And something that I did right away that I really regret doing now, looking back on it, is I went right back to work after my mom passed away. I worked in the dental field, and I was an office manager. Different office than I work in now, but and my boss was very great about it. He kept saying, you don't have to come back, take as much time as you need, we'll figure it out. And I was like, no, I'll come back. I kind of felt like at the time that it would be a good distraction for me, and kind of give me something to focus my thoughts and my energy on. And it kind of was, in a sense, but ultimately what it did was it made me stuff my feelings down, which I'm not a stuffer at all. I do not stuff my feelings down. If I feel something, I'm going to tell you how I feel. And so that was not good for me at all. My mom passed on a Wednesday, and I went back to work that Friday. And then that subsequent Tuesday, I just kept going back to work. And so because I kept stuffing my feelings down all day, I couldn't just be at work and just lose it. I did a couple times and had to go home, but for the most part, I just kind of, got through my day. But what would happen is when I got home from work, I had stuffed my feelings down so much that I couldn't really even access my feelings. I was just kind of numb, it was just very strange and not helpful at all, not helpful. And then something else that I experienced right away was not being able to sleep. I could fall asleep, but I could not stay asleep. Didn't matter what I did, I just could not stay asleep. And what would happen to me is I would wake up in the middle of the night in just a sheer panic. Just panicked that my mom was gone, and also panicked about over her death. What if we should have kept her on life support? And what if in, 10 years from now, they would have some magic cure for her that would have saved her life? And I, in this haste, just decided to shut off her life support. That was something that I just could not let go of. I kept thinking, man, what if they could have saved her? And it just ate at me so badly. And like I said, I would just wake up in the middle of the night and just this, cold sweat panic. It was awful. And I'm the type of person that needs about 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So that took a huge toll on me right away. I was a wreck very quickly. My emotions were all over the place. I would feel like I would need to cry, and I would cry, but I would force myself to stop, because I knew, I was afraid that if I didn't stop myself, that I was never going to stop crying, that I would just, turn into this, blubbering mess on the floor and never be able to get up again. And that scared me. I didn't want that. And, I have my two kids that need a strong mother, and they're going through their own grief. I mean, they just lost this very important person in their life, and I needed to be there for them. But, I was going through so much grief of my own that I kind of failed them in a lot of ways. I just couldn't really take on their grief and my own grief at the same time. It was just very, very hard for me to do that. And I suffered from a lot of guilt, feeling like I'd really let them down. And I hated that. I just wanted so desperately to be strong for them and help them through what they were going through. But then also, not even really being able to help myself through what I was dealing with. And then something else that happened very quickly after my mom passed away. In September, my kids went back to school, and Mondays were my day off. My daughter was a senior in high school at the time, and my son was a freshman. And so my Mondays were kind of my day to like get household chores done and like, I don't know, grocery shopping and bill paying and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember like starting to fold a load of laundry, just fold a load of laundry, and I'd get about halfway through and be like, okay, I can't do this. I just can't handle this. And I'd go downstairs and I'd try to like unload the dishwasher and get about halfway done, and I'd be like, okay, can't do this either. And I'd try to vacuum or dust or whatever. And it would take me literally, I'd get it all done, but it would take me all day to get it done. And it would normally take me like an hour to 2 hours to get this stuff done, And by the time the day would come to an end, I would just be absolutely exhausted from, just doing things that, weren't any big deal, but they became this huge ordeal in my life. I cannot tell you the number of times I walked out of a grocery store with like 2 things in my hand and I needed like 20, or left like a half full grocery cart just in an aisle and just walk out the front door with nothing. It was just really hard for me to do things that I would normally do. And then social situations were a nightmare. I could do some things, like I could go to my son's football games. That was fine. But like I was also involved in this women's bunco group. It's like a dice game, and like you win prizes, and you have to have a certain number of women there to play it. And so, they depended on me to come and do that. And, I would go, but a lot of times I would just have to leave. I would just have to, I'm leaving. And I instead of like picking somebody up or having somebody drive me, I would just take myself, so that if I needed to get the hell out of there, I could do that. I started feeling extremely claustrophobic in social situations. Like the room was like pressing in on me, and the sound and the lights and just everything was just overwhelming. It was like being a mouse in like this enormous house with tons of people in it. That was the best way I can describe it. So there was a lot of times that I just could not go do stuff. I just couldn't. And that was hard for some of the people in my life to understand that like, I'm not the same Erica that I used to be. And, people, a couple of my friends, really took that hard and did not like the fact that I was grieving. And there was nothing I could do about it, and that was hard for me to understand, that like not everybody was going to be supportive of what I was going through, that they expected me to be who I was beforehand. And I couldn't be. I wanted to be, but I couldn't be, there's just no way. And then the main thing that really kind of forced me to deal with my grief and to get some help was I became extremely angry. Just pissed at the world. I was so angry with just everything, that my mom was gone. I just could not believe it. And I was just furious that I no longer had my mother. Just furious with, I don't know, with God, with life, with the universe. I don't even know. I just had all this anger built up inside me. And it started to scare me. It really did. Because I thought, I can't be like this for the rest of my life. I can't walk around being this angry, bitter, awful person. My kids don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. My loved ones don't deserve that. And I got to do something here. So in October, I did go to see my doctor, and I just explained to him kind of what I was experiencing, that my mom had passed away, and this was kind of what I was going through. And he said to me, you need to get some sleep. First of all, we need to deal with your lack of sleep. So he put me on a very mild sedative, not habit forming. And I didn't take it every night, but I took it most nights, and that really helped keep me asleep. And that really helped me start to feel better too, because I just was so sleep deprived that it was really taking a huge toll on me. I mean, I just looked awful and I felt awful. I mean, I felt awful anyway, but that was not helping matters at all. And he also gave me a number for a local grief group. And he said, I think you need to call this number and just kind of see what this entails. And if it's something that you think you want to do, I would go to this group. So that same day I called the number, and this wonderful woman who was the leader of the group answered. And she was just absolutely amazing. I just instantly loved her. The first 30 seconds of our phone conversation, I'm like, I love this lady, And she and another gentleman, a pastor, they had started this group, oh gosh, maybe 7 or 8 years before this. She had lost her husband, and he had lost, I think, his grandpa or grandma. And they just decided to start this group. And she explained to me how it worked, that it would be an 8-week session, that they met one night a week for 2 hours on Wednesday nights. And that the next session was going to be starting in about, 2 weeks. And she really wanted me to start at the beginning of a session, not at the end. And that basically, the people would come and you would sit in a circle, and they would give you a topic, they'd show a video clip, or they'd read a testimonial of someone who had lost someone, or, just other things, other topics. And then they would kind of open it up to the group, and that we could discuss it amongst ourselves. And so I went through 2 cycles of this. The first cycle, there was maybe 10 to 12 of us. And then the second group, there was maybe 20, 25. And there were people from all walks of life, just every different kind of person you could think of. And I will never forget the first night that I walked into that group and sat down and started, sharing and talking and listening. I just felt like I had finally found my home, I finally felt like I wasn't alone, and that I had people in my life that understood me, because we were all going through very similar things. I mean, everybody grieves differently. That's, a big component of this, is that everybody grieves differently. But there were still a lot of universal truths that we were all facing at the same time. And it was just so exactly what I needed. I just needed to feel less alone and more understood. And I finally felt stronger and just more at ease with my life, because I didn't feel like I was just, bashing my head against a wall over and over and over again every day. And another thing that I did too was I contacted a individual counselor, this woman who specialized in grief counseling. And initially I would go see her once a week. And then as time went on, I saw her for about 2 years. As time went on, I saw her every other week. And she was just wonderful. And really what we really focused on initially was my anger. She said, we got to get you through this anger, because, that's no way to live. And how she explained it to me was that I was angry because that is a feeling of control and kind of power, and you are not internalizing anything. You're throwing it all back out into the world around you, rather than holding on to the grief and the sadness, because, sadness and despair makes you feel useless and helpless and worthless. And you just feel like you can't get anything done. You just can't do anything. But if you're angry, boy, you can get up and you can get yourself to work, and you can, sort of function, sort of live your life. And that, you're not holding on to any of these horrible, awful emotions that you don't want to feel. You're throwing it up onto everybody around you and out into the world. And I thought, she's right. At first I was like, nah, that's not what I'm doing. And I thought, no, that is exactly what I'm doing. And so we just worked on letting go of that anger and tapping into my real sadness that I was feeling, that I did not want to feel. And that, I could feel it, and it wasn't going to absolutely destroy me, that I was going to be able to get through it okay. It wasn't going to be fun to deal with, but that if I didn't deal with it, it was going to really, destroy me ultimately. So yeah, we just started talking about what I was angry about, and the fact that I was so hyper focused on my mom's death. I mean, I was just absolutely obsessed with it. And that's not healthy, There was so much more to my mom than her death. I mean, she had a whole life. She lived 72 years, this whole life. And I had 42 years of that, Every time I would start talking about my mom passing, she would just listen to me. And then she'd say, okay, every time you talk about your mom passing away, I'm going to challenge you to then bring up a memory of her life. And I want you to share that in great detail with me. And so I started doing that. I started talking to her about memories that I had of my mom that I loved, and the funny sayings that she would say, and just, the times that we had together and trips that we took, or, just anything that I could think of that was a good memory of my mom. And as time went on, it just started getting a little easier, and I stopped focusing so much on her death, and I started really investing my thoughts and my time and my energy into memories of her life. And that was really the key in my healing and moving forward with my life again. Now, not to say that it was easy, because it wasn't. Something that was really hard and is still hard to this day, even 5 years later, are holidays. My hair's going nuts again. My mom loved holidays. I mean, she would turn Christmas into like this absolute extravaganza for my entire family, especially my kids, decorate the whole house, presents up the wazoo, Christmas music. I mean, just everything, this big, huge dinner, and just this whole day of just fun and love and laughter and wonderfulness. That's just how she was. She was like that about Halloween, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day. I mean, every holiday you could think of, our birthdays, I mean, Mother's Day, Father's Day, everything. She just made it into this very special time. And so the first couple of years after she passed away, Christmas was just like getting kicked in the face with the steel-toed boot. I mean, it was just like, really? We're going to celebrate Christmas? Like, how are we going to do this, And we tried really hard to just kind of do it the way my mom would do it. And it just, I don't know, we just couldn't do that anymore. Like I said, we tried and we just couldn't. So we have developed other traditions that we do now rather than the things that my mom did. But we still always like include a memory of my mom, or, we talk about my mom a lot during those times. But they're still really hard, Mother's Day is pretty grueling for me still. But what I try to do is remember my counseling, and I try to really focus on the wonderful memories that I had of my mom to try to ease that pain a little bit. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't work, I cry and I just let it out, and I have to do that. It's very important for me to grieve and let that out when I feel that just overwhelming need to just cry. I cry. And as time has gone on, I have learned to let go of that anger that I had for so long, and just really embrace my mom's life and her memory. My kids and I love to talk about my mom. My dad loves to talk about my mom. I love to talk about my mom with my husband. Like we'll be watching a movie or something, or somebody will say something. I'm like, oh my gosh, my mom would love that. My mom would have said that, or, just, I don't know. I just really like to bring my mom up and talk about her. And the people that love me the most and are around me the most, they know that, and they're fine with it. My kids and I actually have laughed so hard about my mom that we've actually started crying from laughter, and to be able to get to that level, that point of just sheer ridiculous laughter over someone that's not here anymore, that feels so good to be able to do that. It really does. And so, like I said, it just took time. It just took about, I'd say probably 2 years before I was really able to get to this point where I could, where I could talk about it and not just completely fall apart, and I'm very grateful that I have gotten to this level in my life. Not only for myself, but for my children. I've been able to help my kids a lot more as time has gone on, kind of deal with their own grief and help them process things too, because they needed that, Like I said, they were 17 and 14 when my mom passed away, and she's missed out on a lot of stuff. I mean, huge events in my kids' lives, high school graduation, college graduation, starting college, getting their own place to live, a marriage, a wedding. My daughter just got married, and she's missed all that. And that's been very hard, but we always try to keep my mom's memory alive when we're going through things like that. We bring her up, we kind of make her almost like the focus of the day at times. We really want to make sure that we always include my mom in everything that we do. She's still a huge part of our lives. And I'm so glad that she is. And I'm so glad that I was able to get to that level where I could still have her in my life and not have it be so damn painful, that I could actually feel it and like feel warmth and peace and joy, and not like bitterness and anger and hurt and pain. You know, it is still painful. It's always going to be painful on some level. But like I said, I really feel fortunate that we as a family can now share in the memory of my mom's memory and her love, and not have it destroy us. So I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to finish up my look, and I'll be right back to wrap this video up. So don't go anywhere. All right, this is the finished look, and I think my mom would have loved this look. My mom was such a huge fan of the Oregon duck. She loved the colors green and yellow together, and I just thought it would be really nice, if I'm going to talk about my mom, to create a look in tribute to her. And I really hope that she can see this and that she's very proud of it. I do want to thank you guys very much for sitting down and watching this video. Like I said at the beginning, I understand this is not easy to listen to. It wasn't necessarily easy for me to talk about, but I've always felt so strongly about discussing this event that took place in my life. I just wish that we could all do a better job of talking about death and loss and grieving and healing. I think it's really important to not feel all alone in your grief. So if you are going through this, or you know someone that's going through this, or you have gone through it and you're still struggling, I really encourage you to look around you within your community and just see if there's some kind of like grief group or program or counseling, some kind of therapy that you can get involved in. I just think it would really help you. I know it really helped me. Not to say that we're all the same. I know we all grieve very differently, but I just think it's so important to have help getting through that process. Or, you know, look to your friends, your family, see if they'd be willing to just sit down and talk to you about what you're going through. And if you feel comfortable, I would love for you to share your experiences with loss. If you've lost a loved one and you feel comfortable talking about your experiences in the comment section, I would love that. I just think it would be really important for us to kind of share those experiences with one another and make it less awkward and uncomfortable and frightening. I just really hope that as time goes on, we can all really come together over things like this. I just think it's so important for us to share that with one another and connect on that level. A couple other things I wanted to say before I wrap this up. If you look behind me, you can see a couple pictures, and they are winged seahorses. And my aunt got me those, and those are my tribute to my mom. So she's always in here with me and always in every video with me. Shortly after my mom passed away, I would dream that she was a winged seahorse. That's how she would come to me in my dreams. She wouldn't talk to me or anything, but I just knew that it was her. And it always made me feel this just very serene inner joy every time I would dream that. And so my aunt did that for me, which I just love those pictures. And another thing is that we believe that my mom is now a butterfly. The weekend after my mom passed away, my son went to a car show. He wasn't going to go, and I really encouraged him to just go and, you know, focus on something else and try to have a little bit of fun. You know, I knew my mom would really want that for him. And he's at the fairgrounds. It's this loud, dirty car show. And he's standing there looking in the engine of this car. And all of a sudden, this little white butterfly comes and lands right on his shoulder, and it sits there for about 4 or 5 seconds and then flies off. And he called me just ecstatic that he had had that experience. And when my daughter had her college orientation day, every time we were walking around outside, like from building to building, we had to go to like little seminars or classes, there was a monarch butterfly that followed us the entire time we were there. And there's been several times where my husband and I will be out in our backyard and a butterfly will be flying around our head, or my dad will be in his backyard and a butterfly will fly around him, or my mom's really close friend will be sitting in her backyard and a butterfly will come and land on her hand. She's actually taken pictures of that and sent that to me. So I have a big favor to ask of you guys. Anytime within the next few days, months, years, if you happen to be outside and you think about it and you see a butterfly, I would love for you to look at that butterfly and say, "Hi, Mimi." That's what my kids called my mom. And every time we see a butterfly, that's what we say. "Hi, Mimi." So again, I really want to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy day or evening to sit down and watch my video. It absolutely means the world to me. If you have subscribed or you would like to subscribe, please do not forget to hit the notification bell. That way you're aware of all of my future uploads. I cannot wait to see you guys again in my next video, but in the meantime, please take care of yourself, be well, safe, happy, and I will see you again soon. Thanks again, you guys. Take care. Bye.